Hello, sports fans and geeks and the hybrids I affectionately call sports geeks. This is the panel Sports versus Geeks. It seems like we're indicating some kind of adversarial relationship between those two groups. I don't know. We'll plumb into that in a little bit. But first, let's have our panelists introduce themselves. I will start with the left.
Hi, I'm Michael Mary.
Your name is Mike and your mic doesn't
My
work.
mic doesn't work.
Come on.
Well, I'm also an actor. The hell with it. Hi, I'm Michael Merriam. I'm a local science fiction and fantasy author. So definitely geek guy. I was also a Division I athlete at one time. You wouldn't know to look at 50-year-old me now, but I played Division I baseball. And I'm one of the people who suggested this panel. I'll probably let my wife talk about why we suggested this panel.
My name is Oscar Shiny. I'm a pirate fiction novelist, but I'm also a life coach, so I figured put the word coach in my profession. I've always been interested in both married things and sports. And, you've heard probably the phrase like football widow in football season. My friends all started discovering computer games when I was about 11, so I felt like a video game widow. There was no one to play sports with anymore. I ended up at Seward School in Minneapolis, hitting tennis balls sadly against the wall. So I've always thought that these two things they're not mutually exclusive. So it's a very beautiful thing.
Hi, my name is Sherry Merriam. There is actually a relation. I'm married to that guy on the other end of the table. I grew up in Oklahoma, where the state religion is football. And my choices were learn to love it or hate myself. My brother was an all-star athlete in high school football, and so that was the dinner table conversation, and so I had to adapt. I'm not an athlete, but I was in the marching band all those years, and so I marched in the same field as my brother.
Yeah! That counts.
And so, exactly, so I marched in the same field that my brother played on, and my parents were equally proud of both of us. I did not come to think of myself as an athlete until relatively recently. I teach Tai Chi. And some of us think of that as a sport, some of us think of that as something that we play. I think it's a little bit of both. The reason there are letters behind my name is because on some of the panels that I'm serving on this weekend, I'm sitting in my professional capacity as a licensed counselor, and so that's why there are little letters hanging out after my name. What else did I want to say? Oh, I'm wearing a derby shirt, which represents the crossover between geeks and sports, especially derby. It's a Game of Skates themed, Game of Thrones themed derby shirt from one time we went to derby. So, okay. The reason why I suggested the panel was because we've noticed a lot of. You know what? Let me get back to that. We'll finish the introductions and then we'll talk about it.
I'm Dave Kingsley, longtime sports fan, longtime geek, and back in the late 90s, I went to a lot of sports events and couldn't go to sports events without me being there almost. And so now I get back in the sports I go to and have something more closely resembling the life. And I am also wearing the geeky sports t-shirt. It's fantasy football.
Well, and I'll come back to you in this completely backwards order that I put forward. My name is Brian Salisbury. I've been a film critic and a podcaster for a long time. I run a website called oneofus.net and just ended my 2-year tenure as host of a show called Inside the Locker, which was a podcast about making sports more accessible to geeks. The whole concept of the show is that we were the guys who got stuffed into the lockers in school, but while we were in there, we studied sports. So then when we got out, we knew more about the sports than the jobs did. So it was really just about all of the ridiculous barriers that I saw between those two groups, and being somebody that loves both of them, and also being from Texas and wearing my own geeky sports shirt on the hunt for a title, Boba Fett. Which, funny enough, Texas football is about as effectual as Boba Fett is as a bounty hunter. One move, you fall in the fucking sun. He's the worst! I'm sorry. They should have had a bench. They should have had a bench. IGA is right there. It's fine.
So we're up here with the BT guy. What are we going to do?
You're going to let it moderate for something. I want to thank Michael Cherry for coming up with this panel, because this is something that I have been passionate about for a long time. I really have never wrapped my head around the idea that you are either into like geeky passions or you're a sports fan. Like inherently those two things are so similar that the fact that people keep butting their heads about like, no, they're them and us, and like that, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. So I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say.
Yeah, what started the inspiration was, I mean, we noticed this kind of growing, not just jocks versus nerds kind of a thing, but there's lots of, more and more references in geek culture to sports ball, and this, in this way that's derogatory, or where geeks are taking pride at not knowing what sports ball is, or how is that played, or I don't like that sports ball thing, which is fine if you don't like something and that is something, I'm okay with that. But what really kind of made me go, huh, was an incident last year. Michael and I were attending a different conference here in the Twin Cities, and I went out, I don't remember if he was working or not, but I went out, okay. I went out to dinner with some friends from the conference, and we wound up at a pub during the soccer,
You guys were at Cooper's during the soccer.
yeah,
World
we were
Cup.
at Cooper's Irish Club during the World Cup. And this...
As opposed to the World Cup of beer pong, which is also really
Right. And
spectacle.
so everybody else in the pub was there to see the World Cup except for us, which was fine with me, but it was not fine with everybody else at my table, and they seemed really offended by the presence of sports fans in their space, even though we had gone to a pub during the World Cup, so that was kind of our fault. But every time the crowd would cheer at something exciting happening on television, as happens in a pub during a sports event, people at my table were like making obscene ASL and other gestures at other people in the pub because they were so deeply offended by the presence of sports in their space.
It's just such a jock thing to get a bunch of people who appreciate the same stuff together in one place and be really enthusiastic about it. Hey, Convergence, how's it going? I don't get it. I don't get it.
And so that's what made me really question what is going on here with us nerds, that we've got so much animosity that we have to be offended by sports fans having fun in their space that we visited.
Well, I think we hit that really starting when we talked about the division in high school. You talked about being shoved in the locker and
Which, full disclosure, never actually happened.
No, because I've been this size since I was 12, so nobody's going to shove me. Yeah, good luck with that. But I completely understand that. Crummy microphone, there we go. I won't touch it. So I completely understand the historical hurt. But at some point we have to grow past that. I guess I'm going to let the wife, coach, and the counselor talk more toward that because I'm just a science fiction writer who played baseball once. But I really feel like we have to kind of go past that. And I really feel like high school. High school is this awful authoritarian place where you are taught to be mindlessly patriotic and conform. Okay? And so we have to now move past that thing and understand that we all actually have more in common. These great passions that we have for, be it sports, be it science fiction, fantasy, be it freaking pirates, whatever it is, that you're passionate about. We have that passion.
What's your last book called? Freaking Pirates?
Freaking Pirates.
Your next book should be Freaking Pirates.
I grew up. I started role playing from the age of 7, and it always struck me that, hey, it's a game, and then I go play kickball. Hey, it's a game, and I don't see why the one group of gamers would hate the other group of gamers. The only difference is that one game is more mental and imagination-based, and the other game is more physical. And people are a little salty about getting picked last. I got picked last a lot, where I was the first pick out of the group of last picked kids. Because I was a geek, I was shy, but I was also athletic. And, people actually do pick more based on your popularity than your ability.
No.
But I remember I was at,
Wait, is this a political panel? Because I didn't want to do that.
Yes, we're the ones up here. But I was in high school and I had this, I was letting my nerd show big time. It just didn't occur to me that this might be a bad idea. I wore my Don't Panic shirt to gym class. And everybody panicked immediately. Don't Panic became baseball, and then it stopped, and then, you know, it became a term of endearment. They left me alone after that, and I thought, you know, that really shouldn't determine how people treat me, but then, you know, I think now too, like, it also shouldn't, it's kind of on both sides of the fence, like, you know, those people where you just want to scream that they can't understand that 3 stone and 2 wheat does not create a city in Southern Utah. It creates a town, a city. Why don't you get it? Why do you suck at this game? And it's just that exact same thing. Why do you suck at this game? It's high school. We all left it behind on both sides of it. Why do we still put it that way?
Yeah. But at the same time, as much as that frustrates me, I also don't want to be too dismissive of it,
No.
because there is a lot of reason for some of those rules. And there's a certain point in your life where it's like, okay, I'm 39 years old. It's time to flip and grow out of it. and so that's kind of where I put the pressure on myself and others. It's like, okay, you know, many of us were bullied for one reason or another, and it's time to kind of grow up and grow out of it. But at the same time, I recognize that some of those hurts are there, and I try not to paint everybody with the brush of, hey, you know, because you're so-and-so, you remind me of that, you know, guy in 8th grade who pushed me in the pool or whatever. And for some reason, that's making me think like that song, like, "When the Woman's Cool," you know, so anyway, it kind of makes me.
We're not cool enough to know that song.
Well, look it up.
So I do sucked at sports growing up, and I played baseball up until I was a young adult, and naturally. And I was mostly sucked, though. It became decent once I got a chance to play more. And one year I hit 333.
Sweet.
That's not too bad, batting average, right?
Yeah. 333. There you go. I can do it.
I wanted to share something that I literally just heard today. I have been at Convergence for all of an hour, and I had been here all of 5 minutes. I was waiting for the elevator, and there was someone behind me who had made this incredible infinity gauntlet, and it had a place to put a drink, and I was like, that is great. And I heard him say, yeah, I retconned it from a Pittsburgh Steelers fan fist. Take that, jocks. And I was like, take that? They just gave you a way to drink and have an infinity gauntlet. Why are you embracing the fact that, like, you literally add stones to the Pittsburgh Steelers fan fist and you have an infinity gauntlet? If that is not a clear sign that there is this much difference between these fans, I don't know what is. Like, I think you're taking this the completely wrong way.
Yeah, a lot of it's about building bridges. I said it's a different panel today. Building bridges and treating them like they work both ways instead of just, you know, I'm building a bridge to other people so they can come to my little island and I can stay.
That's a draw.
Be happy.
That's
Yeah,
not
exactly. But you know, I tell people, people ask me all the time, what is role playing like? You know, what is that about? You know, a lot of these people may have in high school looked at as funny and those are the freaks over there. We don't have to talk to anybody. And I've heard other people answer this question, and they say all kinds of things. Like they start talking about their character, and they start going into detail about, you know, whatever swords they might pull out, the missions they might do. And I watch people's eyes glaze over, and I just go up to them and I say, it's a way to go create a story. You go to them, use their language, and they will do that with you. Sports fans love to talk about sports. You know, there was the whole issue of statistics. Like both camps love statistics. You know, if only economists would love them as well. That's the third home run that anyone's ever hit on 2 outs with, you know, an injured knee.
There are a lot of ridiculous records in sports.
There's some ridiculous statistics that.
This is the first time since 2014 that anyone like, wait, hold on. No, why are you even keeping track?
But I can take that angle, you
Yeah.
use ridiculous statistics in baseball and turn that around and use ridiculous stuff in role playing. To then, you know, I'll admit it, I'll admit Max.
I think that's a really good point out there, because that about creating a story and getting into the story, because I got dragged to my brother's little league games when we were kids, and oh my God, was that boring as hell to me. And so I hated baseball. I never enjoyed it. And so, you know, when I married my husband, he was a Division I college baseball player, and he loves baseball. And when he talks about baseball, he's like a little kid. It's so adorable. And I'm like, but I hate baseball. It's so boring. How can you like it? And now we've been married for 19
That baseball.
Bolter.
That bad.
I was like, I could go on for days.
No,
It's baseball.
I was waiting for him to provide the answer because I knew that he knew which one I meant. Bull Durham. And that's the one where you get the voiceovers of what the players are thinking in their heads as they're standing there on the field. And so you find out what's going on. And then you start to find out like what the story is. It's not just a bunch of people standing out there doing nothing. There's so much going on in their heads. And so now I sit in front of a baseball game next to my husband and I say, okay, what's he thinking?
Now imagine if you watched that movie 19 years ago.
I know, right? And so he'll lean over and he'll say, okay, well, he's thinking this because that just happened, and that guy over there just did this, and so this, but he knows what's going to come up next, and this guy's going to come up next, and not because that, because that. I'm like, okay, now I get it. Finally.
All you need are little figures and a mat with a bunch of squares.
I used to do that in baseball.
Yeah, I was gonna say, do you want, yeah.
So, can I get back to the group of low statistics? The best way to get jocks and geeks to talk to each other is start from
Yes.
It doesn't matter the sport, they've all got ridiculous.
Which one am I, which thing am I describing? You pick the best members of the guild that you need to achieve victory. Am I talking about fantasy football, or am I talking about D&D?
Right.
Because I'm talking about both. It's you building a guild with fantasy football. I've played fantasy football for the last 5 years, and I approach it the same way I do deciding between like a half-orc Avenger and, you know, the Elf King. Like, it's just like it all comes down to statistics and who I think late in the season / campaign is actually going to be the one that holds out. So yes, you're absolutely right. That is the clearest example I think possible of like you guys realize that this is all kind of the same, right?
For God's sake, fantasy football has little to nothing to do with football anyway, so.
Right. And you're putting together a team, and you need a player who's good at this, and a player who's good at this, and a player who's good at this, because they can't all be kickers, or you're going to be screwed. And so you got to cover all your bases and have a good team that fits well.
And the best part is, like D&D, because you don't know what your DM is going to do, your choices could be completely useless by round 2 or week 2, where it's like, I drafted the best, but he's injured.
Yeah.
Awesome, thanks for that. Oh, yeah, a saving throw. They don't do that? Awesome.
I love it when weather screws up a game. Like a real muddy game.
It never rains in the basement.
And if you want a game, if you want to see both sports fans and gamers get their blood pressure up, just start playing in a Blood Bowl league.
Oh, God.
What's a blood bowl?
It's a miniatures game. It's football based, but it's sort of fantasy, and just you get gamers to think about sports and try to min-max and make everything work. I played it in 1 season, as Nate knows, and I think that was my last one because everyone gets like sports fans. It almost generates fist fights.
I haven't actually played that, but I've heard about it. You have orcs and elves and ogres.
Yeah, there are all kinds of different races. You have a dwarf team and you built it perfect, and then someone else did something that totally destroys your team. But that's against you can't say that's against the rules.
It's funny because as he was saying that, I was literally trying to assign different NFL players to all of those fans. The only thing I come up with is Ben Roethlisberger for Ogre, but
Still needs an all-star game.
So I think one of the things that really bugs me is, you know, I get equally as offended when someone is really dismissive about, you know, on both sides of it. It's like if someone's really dismissive about how much I love like the James Bond franchise, and they're like, those movies are so old, who cares? Or on the flip side of that, when I'm talking to my movie geek friends and then I mention that I have to go because the Super Bowl's on, and I'm like, why do you even watch that? And I'm like, oh my God, I'm getting it from both ends. I'm literally getting it dismissed from both sides. Like I understand too. I really do understand that there are reasons for the hurt, but at a certain point, like, I mean, when is it like? Would we be accepting of like if we were here and someone was smack talking, you know, Doctor Who versus you know, Marvel comics or whatever? Like that would be really uncool to be like, because this is supposed to be a place where, you know, no matter what it is that you know drives your geeky passion, that, you know, this is a place that's accepting of it. And I feel like the one thing that still has a ways to go is the idea that you can be, I feel like there's always going to be the people who are letting, and again, possibly completely valid reasons for disliking sports and sports fans, but still, like, it's the same kind of prejudice. I don't think you should generalize to any group of people based on a limited number of experiences.
So like you were saying, it's not so much that people are trashing one sport or the other, one geeky thing or the other. It's the dismissiveness on either side. It's like there are a bunch of Seattle bands that popped up in the 90s, and a friend of mine just started referring to all of them as Pearl Stone Temple of the Dog. Because there are three bands where it seems like they're just the same. But it's that same kind of thing. It's like it's all the same. I'm not trashing one or the other because it's all the same, and that's both sides of that off.
Good question. Awesome. Go for it.
Do you want to go first?
You go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think too, one of the things we have to do is show, I mean, if you look at me, you wouldn't say, wow, she's a diehard Green Bay Packer fan. And I'm a diehard Green Bay Packer fan.
Hey, boo!
Generated discussion.
You can boo Vikings fans when you win a Super Bowl.
Just because your team is better doesn't make you better as a fan.
Yes, it does.
We can have fights within. We don't have to fight from without.
So I made a big risk. I went to Dragon Con last year for the first time, never went. I'm like, I have a lot of Green Bay Packer-based costumes. Like, I have a Game of Thrones costume for Green Bay Packers. And my friends are like, dude, not to Atlanta.
Not
Pardon?
Atlanta?
So they're like, don't do that in Atlanta. I'm like, no, we're everywhere. Green Bay Packer fans are everywhere. She's like, Dragon Con? I'm like, I guarantee. And yeah, we are Legion and we are everywhere. But it was cool because other people who are not Green Bay Packer fans but were sports fans were like, oh, you mean we can do that here? That's okay? We can talk about football, no one's going to beat us up? I'm like, yeah, you can like both. So it was really nice to see, you know, if you show that, hey, I like this too, people will approach you and be like, hey, I hate the Packers, but, you know, go, I don't know, all those other teams that I
Then you get the same smack talk that you get over a board game.
Or which doctor is best. I have heard more heated arguments about which doctor is best than which athlete deserves the MVP, and to me that's hilarious. I love it so much. And also Valar Lombardi. So you had a question.
Well, I just was thinking, one thing that we have a problem with is the narrative of assuming that the very protagonist is supposed to be the antagonist. Actually, I was talking about some of my friends today. There's another bully who becomes the bully. Carol, I'm sorry that I missed that. When I was growing up, I was in second grade. My mother had just turned into a boarding education, and so Dungeons and Dragons wasn't okay. It wasn't okay after I had decided to play, and all of a sudden, all my friends, all people who I couldn't play with anymore, so they became bullies. They became the unaccepted people, and all of a sudden, the kids who were big on sports in my classroom, like, come on over, we'd love to play football. And it was a very strange moment. I still have that. Like, you know, we've been talking about like people getting dumped into the locker and all this, and some of that happened too as I became a middle schooler and high school like that. But all of that happened with many of the sort of sports antagonists. But it's important to remember that we can be just as horrible to each other as nerds, as sports folks.
Yeah. I think anytime haven becomes clique is when you have a problem. And when you have a culture of inclusion that becomes a culture of a caste system, essentially. And I don't know. I was never, like, from my own experience, I was never at all what you would call a jock. I played sports hilariously, but I always loved them. I mean, I grew up in Indiana, so like basketball, if you weren't into basketball, you couldn't talk to most people because our main exports are basketball and methamphetamines. So I had to do one. So I chose basketball, although the week I tried to get one was crazy. But again, it was really just like, the thing that I latch onto with sports as a geek is that I am a film geek. I love movies unabashedly, all makes and models, and I love the inherent cinematic nature of unscripted drama, which is exactly why I like watching sports, because, outside of being a New England Patriot, you can't affect the outcome. That felt really good. that's what I love about it. Like there was a great situation. I wrote this article where the Giants were going to the Super Bowl against the Patriots, and it was like the year after like Peyton had been injured. So I wrote this whole like, what if this was a movie and little brother rises up? Like basically wrote it as if it were like a George R. R. Martin story, like the little brother that rises up and takes down the enemy king. And that's kind of the reason I like sports. Is there's a lot of really lofty cinematic storylines going on if you can look past kind of the supposed dude bro trappings of being a sports fan, which I think is just as stereotypical as assuming that everyone who likes comic books is socially awkward. Like to me, like that kind of prejudice is hurtful on both sides of the fence. So.
Something else that your point brought to my mind is kind of you're getting at the social psychology of it all. Like what we as social creatures tend to do. We tend to create in-groups and out-groups. And once our group gets too big, we have to divide a line between us versus them. And that can be, in our interests, that can be in our religion, that can be in what color our skin is, that can be in what nation state we live in. We have this need to draw, no, we got too big of a social group, so we need to draw a line between us versus them. And that's for survival, because you can't survive as a group once you get beyond a certain size. And so we're kind of hardwired to set this dividing line between an us and a them. Like, okay, no, my group I have to protect, and I can only protect so large of a group. I can only help feed and nurture and clothe and house a certain size, and so I have to have this line that helps me think of how big is my group and who don't I, and who am I not responsible for. And if I'm not responsible for them, then they must be the enemy.
I think I am biologically predisposed to hate Bill Belichick, though. I think that's yeah, I think that's good.
That's okay. I think Sherry has a good point, though. I mean, anybody who is, and we weren't here, but anybody who was in Minneapolis fandom when the great Minicon convergence, MarsCon explosion schism happened, you just saw that in action. You saw the group get too big, and people want different things, and to protect itself, what happened is it splintered off. I mean, there was a time when Minicon was what, 3,000 people, something like that, and then they said, we don't want all this drinking and partying, and we want to give out books or something. I wasn't here, so I don't actually have a dog in that.
Sounds like the worst thing ever.
I know. I got here, and I'm like, this seemed like a kind of a silly fight to me, but then I guess I wasn't here. So.
Well, we moved here after, so we get people know.
Right, exactly. We get to go all. I don't have a dog in the fight.
So I actually got into sports activities because of my fandom. The things that I really enjoy are the things like Dragon Ball Z, Yu Hakusho Show, Batman comics, and something that kind of we miss is that most of these characters, these are athletes. They go through training so they can have these skills. And well, I can't learn how to throw energy out of my face, so I'm still working on that. But I can learn martial arts. I've been learning martial arts. I learn more about other forms of physical training, and I learned about the science that goes behind building human physiology. And I think it's a good point about how there's that division where we create these barriers. These barriers are very much limit our ability to actually see the full aspects of the music that we actually like. Because if we actually look at the complete picture of what is like things we enjoy, like the sport that you like, we see the overlap, we see the math, the science that goes into the sport, we see the athleticism, the sports concepts that make up half of the stories that we really enjoy.
Yeah, I took karate from age 8 to 10 because I got picked on. And karate is actually, a physical, sporty kind of thing to do. So, I mean, in another sense, I also became somewhat sporty in a different way because of my family. But, speaking a little bit more to your point too, like I think part of what we all kind of grew up with, that shoving kids into lockers or whatever. A lot of that isn't just because you're interested in Harry Potter or whatever. Sometimes that's because you are tagged as abnormal in some way, socially awkward or whatever. You might not even be a geek, you're just socially awkward. Jocks do that to these socially awkward jocks. And a lot of people grow out of that. Like, for example, my name, I grew up in Minneapolis. My name was really uncool for the first 15 years of my life. And around about the time I started taking, around about my junior year, people started coming up to me and saying, wow, that's such a cool name. It's so different and it's not boring. I'm like, well, it took you guys long enough. And if I'd grown up in Turkey, people will be like, that's such a boring thing.
That's a really good point, Oscar. That's a really good point, Oscar. Every pack needs an omega. There needs to be the weak one to pick on.
Well, I mean, personally, I'm going into my senior year, and I'm gonna be captain of like 2 of my sports teams, and like I'm varsity on one of them, and it's like I'm kind of just thinking, because you guys were talking earlier about like the kind of like, I think someone said like a caste system or like what level of fan you are, and I'm just kind of comparing it to the way like the varsity ski squad like sticks together, and then if you're not varsity, like you don't get like I've noticed this in that like I'm one of the few varsity like ski girls who will like go to the other part of the locker room because our locker room is like separated. I'll go to the other part of the locker room and I'll hang out with the freshmen who can barely ski. Like on the trip, I didn't room with all the juniors and seniors. I roomed with some freshmen that I'm like, you know what, you guys are cool. Like I'm gonna hang out with you instead of hanging out with all of the ski girls who like it. And I've noticed like it's kind of a in between sort of thing, because it's like kind of, because also like my friend made me get a Tumblr my freshman year, and I always feel really weird whenever I post something sports related on it, because I'm like, this is a different part of my life.
Can I ask you a question? Do you think that your willingness to reach out to the freshman team players may have anything to do with the fact that you also like are a fan of Doctor Who and some of the other supposed? Because it's like I feel like when you exist in both spheres, you really do develop that ability. Like I'll talk to anybody. Like, I don't care what you're passionate about. Like I think it's actually a benefit to have been a fan of like really nerdy stuff. Like I was a horror movie junkie as a kid, and I liked a lot of nerdy stuff. And I think like having that and feeling kind of isolated a little bit in the high school cat or the middle school caste system, and then also liking sports, like just kind of made it easier for me to just be like, screw this, I'm gonna talk to everybody. So do you kind of feel that way? Do you feel like that might have influenced your willingness to reach out?
I'd say that's part of it. I mean, my middle school ended up having a ski team, so by the time I got into high school, I was not varsity whatsoever. But like, I was much more knowledgeable about skiing than most of the other people I was like skiing with. And so I've kind of been in positions where it's like I've been sort of like almost a coach or a teacher. I mean, that's also my job, like teaching skiing. That's a different thing. And so it definitely does help, because like one of my best friends, she didn't have anyone to talk to in jazz band one of the first day of the freshman year, and I was just like, hey, I'm gonna talk to you because neither of us have anyone to talk to right now. And this is getting kind of awkward because everyone else in here like knows people, and you and I both don't know each other because no one here went to our schools.
When you used to be ostracized, you're usually much less willing to do that to other people. That does have its extreme to where you stop judging anything about anybody. Everybody's in the little club.
Or it can go in the opposite direction, where because you were the ostracized or pushed out one, you can kind of turn and want to ostracize and push out others. You can turn and go to the other side.
Yeah, and I think those are the two responses you can have. Is you can either develop an ability to push past like all the labels and just get to know people on a personal level, or you can go the exact opposite way where you just are kind of shut off from anybody who isn't exactly like you, which I think is a really sad state of being.
It might be very lonely.
Yeah, it'd be very lonely, and I feel like that can then foster these feelings of like I was wronged and these are the people that it's like maybe they're a catalyst, but like ultimately you decide how you respond to things. Like I was picked on for a while in school, and it's like I could have very easily just been completely withdrawn and bullying everybody, but it's like, you know what, I still like the things that I like. There's still people I know that like, these various things that I like. I don't think it's inherently the only response to when you have been picked on to completely withdraw and start festering these feelings of animosity toward the things that the people that picked on you love. Not even, it's funny because it's like these people are not necessarily representative of an entire group, and yet we can still harbor this animosity toward the thing that the person that picked on you likes, which is so transitive.
I grew up in Texas as well, and just hated People talk to me now, and they're so friendly.
Full cosplay.
And like, it's really helped my relationship with my dad, because he's like, I don't know much about hockey, but like, we can talk about hockey. We can go to hockey games. And he's so excited to have something to talk about with me now.
I was going to say that I think it's even less about how we feel that we were hating things because we didn't hate it, and more just that a lot of groups build their identity as opposition to mainstream society and what's accepted by everybody. So it's not just two different camps. It's that one camp is socially acceptable and your father wanted to talk to you. And the other maybe doesn't. So if you've built this whole sort of like defensive identity around not like them, it can be really difficult when you grow up, even if you don't have any kind of bullying history. It can be difficult to realize that actually, yes, there are people too, and just because their actions are more socially acceptable doesn't mean that you have to.
Right, and there's also the interesting note about how trends changed. Because remember when Marvel superheroes were this thing that only geeks like, and now it's like the only type of movie that gets made anymore. So like superheroes have gone completely mainstream. So to me, it's like I think you're absolutely right with what you're saying. But what I find funny about that mentality is like, give it 10 or so years to stew, and the thing that you thought only like this tiny group of people were into is now a huge mega phenomenon. So
it's part of growing up to build your own identity that's not based on reactive feelings about other things.
It's like when we all liked Green Day and then we all hated it. We're so punk, they're awesome, they're not Green jokes.
Doctor Who.
Not to get too in depth on this, but there's a little concept called the pre-trans fallacy where like pre-conventional and trans-conventional both they just look like non-conventional, and so they both get lumped into the same group. You often get people who are really not up to social conventions. They're not up to interacting well with others and whatever. And other people are just kind of, they're in all groups, and so all those groups hate them because they all want to be provincial and exclusive and whatever. So, but they both tend to end up in the same club, and you get this weird mishmash of people who hate things for completely different reasons. And a lot of the time, we kind of forget sometimes that mainstream exists for a reason. It's the norm in a really broad sense. That doesn't mean you have to be that, but like I grew up cripplingly shy. And I didn't say, hey, I'm ostracized, I'm going to band it together with all the other ostracized people and say I'm okay. I thought, no, I should really try to learn the social skills. And I think, a lot of people just kind of do what you're saying, and they kind of react to, well, these are all the people who do this, and I'm not that, so I'm just totally cool and who I am, and I have nothing more to learn from that. And that's an anti-identity.
Right, it's not your only option.
Right.
Like, build your own co-identity in some way.
Exactly.
You don't have to be mainstream at all, but you don't have to it's still defining yourself via the mainstream, which is probably something that you actually wouldn't like.
If you define yourself by something you don't like, you're going to end up not liking yourself very much.
I looked at that song and I referenced earlier, so I wanted to give you guys more details. So there's that web series, The Guild, which is about a group of MMO players. And Felicia Day and the other cast members of the Guild did a song called I'm the One That's Cool, and they did a music video of it, and it's pretty cool and awesome. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out.
Good question.
So when I go to sports games, I really let my geek life fly. Like I don't own any Twins gear, so when I go to Twins games, I will wear a red or a blue very geeky shirt. And I have found it's actually really surprising. Honestly, I think a stereotype for me is assuming what other people are like. Because when I go to these games and I'm really just letting myself out there, there's so many people come up, oh, I love your shirt, oh, I love Star Wars, oh, I love Doctor Who, and it's really been eye-opening for me. And even an event where you just expect that everyone there is going to be so sports-focused to find some solidarity.
There is some crossover between the groups. In fact, this year, sometimes sports will do promotions that crossed over to Geeks, and last month or late May, there was a Star Wars night at Target Field, and there were people there dressed as Darth Vader and Stormtroopers, and there were some fans that bought the ticket in special section. They were giving away a huge LaForce bobblehead, which was pictured with huge.
I do want to put this out there that, at least my observation is that there is a person out there who is a hybrid of the geek and jock, and that is known as the hipster. So you've got your craft gear, you've got your sports. You've got your sports.
Nope.
Sports thing.
See, but here's my problem with that is that to me, and again, I could be guilty of generalizing here, but to me, hipsterism is the idea of ironic appreciation. In other words, fake appreciation. In other words, no actual appreciation for anything. So I don't, again, like I feel really weird saying this in a panel about accepting everybody, but I really don't like the idea that you can have a personality based on having no appreciation for anything and being smug about it. Either like something or hate something, don't have a personality based on not actually liking anything. I don't know. They do, that's great. Own it.
I do.
I feel like hipster are actually, like, you're not wrong, but I feel like hipsters are like the darkest timeline. It's like the worst of both worlds.
There's a better hybrid out there somewhere.
That would be my definition of this.
This is the thing that you get geeks and jocks to agree on.
There's also like the least defined word out there. It's becoming whoever you don't like.
We don't want this to turn into a panel about what is a hipster.
I mean, you probably wouldn't even understand if you told you. Probably never heard of it.
I'm curious what some good bridges are that you've found between the worlds of, the geekdom and the sports stuff.
Sports movies. Every geek I know who hates sports loves sports movies. And again, it's because there's so much that is naturally cinematic about unscripted contests. And I think one of my favorite is Moneyball for that reason, because Moneyball is a movie about taking an athletic contest and breaking it down to math. Like literally Aristotelian style, breaking it down to its most basic component and just going with numbers on a sheet, which is like, it's the fantasy sports movie. I mean, that's exactly Billy Bean's approach, is that I'm just going to look at stats and I'm going to have this equation that I plug people into, which sounds very dehumanizing, but because it's an Aaron Sorkin script and he can set drama inside of a Grecian urn, because that's what he does, they find the romanticism there, and I think that's why I love that movie so much. But again, sports movies are the best bridge between people who love sports and people who hate sports, because even people who hate sports like sports movies.
Sports movies are also intriguing because they're usually about the underdog, on the odds, and winning.
I also really enjoyed the fantasy sports example. That's something that I want to bring out. It's a good hybrid. You got the statistics, you've got the uncertainty. Another thing that I've really liked, just bridging the gap between my sports friends and my geek friends. I feel like I'm on this island in this river. You've got everybody on the bank over here, everybody over here. I just want to, bring people together, have a good time. And another thing I found is esports, specifically League of Legends. But you've got...
Which was on ESPN, by the way. Which is hilarious to me. I turned on ESPN 3 and was like, wait, this is a League of Legends tournament going on ESPN. I wanted to call everyone I knew, like, guys, see, I told you, it's here.
You got storylines, you got statistics, you got win-loss records, you've got, the drama in the teams, you've got coaches. And I found that brings friends together, just the excitement and the enthusiasm of it.
I think that one thing I found to be a really good bridge, and it's actually more of a misconception. A lot of people for a long time, for example, did not. I would do this dismissive gesture where I'm like, I don't care about football. I don't understand football. I did this dismissive thing. Finally, somebody took the time to explain the rules of football, and then I could appreciate football. And I think a big part of it is a lot of people who are sports fans learn sports when they're really young. They learn the rules, and they don't understand anybody who doesn't get it. And if you can talk to somebody knowledgeably about sports, that by itself is a good enough bridge for most sports fans. If you can talk to somebody knowledgeably about their geeky pursuits, that's a great bridge in the opposite direction. All you've got to do is be able to talk about it knowledgeably, and just to show your appreciation, and that usually wears down that barrier.
And to that end, I am a sports fan, but if anybody can explain cricket to me, that would be awesome.
There's a casting thing every year.
After this, we're going to
Fantastic.
talk about it because I have watched it several times. It's bonkers.
Yeah,
It's still bonkers.
he does a phenomenal job of explaining.
Okay, awesome.
This is magic ones actually know.
So clearly with baseball, like vision for me was like figuring out how to get into their heads, big surprise, and a psychotherapist. So maybe what helps you appreciate things and other things, like if what you enjoy is story, then, you know, the story of what's going on in the field is probably what's going to help you appreciate the game, or whatever. One thing that I'm not going to forgive myself afterwards if I don't mention it, my husband's going to be mad that he didn't have it first, is the baseball episode of Star Trek Deep Space Nine. One marriage policy. That is one of our favorite episodes of DS9. And I'm going to spoil it right now because one of the things that makes it beautiful as a sports movie or sports episode, right, is the fact that they don't win the game. Right? The odds are terrible. They just assembled this team. Only 2 people on the team knew how to play the game at the beginning of the episode.
And one of them's not playing.
And one of them's not playing. And they're up against an entirely Vulcan team. And as we all know, Vulcans have like 3 times the strength and speed of any human. And so they're completely screwed from the beginning. But they managed to get 1 score at the end of the game. And to them, that's the victory, and they march off the field in victory, and all the Vulcans are like, you lost, you make no sense, it's not logical. But all of us humans are like, but we got a moral victory.
I would love to try and make the Vulcan's head explode by explaining how FIFA works. Like, no.
The Ferengi could explain it.
They were not for profit. Oh yeah, I know.
48th rule of acquisition.
Pretty sure you can make any sane person head explode.
Yeah, probably. I think in addition to going back, in addition to the be able to talk about it, one that's actually more instantly effective is be able to armchair quarterback. If you can sit there and watch something geeky or watch something sporty and say, here's how it could be done better, that carries instant points with anybody who knows, even if they think you're wrong.
So start with David Lindelof.
They probably won't know what you're talking about or whether or not you're possibly wrong. So you could just be saying, oh, well, you did that wrong. No, they're
Well, should. Here's how that quarterback should have played the game. Yeah, no, good, that's good.
So we're now talking about, you know, our geek friends to our sports friends, bridging the gap. How do we get that message to our young people? How do we show that in schools? Because growing up, we felt on this island, you know, of trying to get our geeky friends to like sports, our sports friends to like our geek stuff. You know, how do we say, you know, how do we teach our kids where in schools bullying is so rampant and ostracizing, you know, the people that don't feel included, whether they are a geek or whether they're a jock. How do we teach that to our young people?
I think more of it is about teaching the skill of building bridges. If you're a kid that likes 5 different things, what's really going to help you the most is learning how to talk to each of those groups and say, I really love what you guys do. I love these same things. And find a way to communicate that the other things that you're interested in that they tend to ostracize are not threatening to them. And just kind of be cool with each group that you deal with. That, I think, is a much better skill for a kid to bridge all of those gaps by themselves. It's not about learning sports better or or geeky things better, because there are so many different cliques. There used to be the goths, and the nerds, and the shy kids. There are different kinds of
princesses,
goths. And all these groups, you might have something in common with them, and we could be talking about any of those groups. If you can learn how to deal with people that way, you don't have to worry about the name of the group.
I think it's also important not to project our experiences onto the kids and kind of pay that stuff forward. Because it'd be really easy to, we all know, and we've heard about like the parents who try to live out their lives through their kids. Kids to think or believe or act in a certain way, or why are you hanging out with those kids? Aren't those jock kids or whatever? But instead, like the kids that I talk to, I work with some adolescents in my work, and they seem completely crazy open-minded compared to, maybe that's because they're coming to see the purple-haired therapist, but compared to like the kids I went to school with, and that's probably also where I live now. But they have so many less boundaries, it seems like. They examine the sociocultural walls that we have, that kind of stuff didn't happen when I was a kid. But they're looking at that kind of stuff in ways that I think is pretty awesome. Like they're way more advanced at that kind of thing than we were when we were kids.
And I think it's also important to teach kids not to have such a myopic view of their world. Like, high school doesn't define the entire world, and I think all of us have learned that at some point in our lives. Where it's like, you want to play baseball, the school has a baseball team, you didn't make that team, start your own team. The school doesn't have the only baseball ability, the only capability of putting together a baseball team. And I think like when we're in school and we're in that system, like that's what we think the whole world is, and it's like, it's not at all. Like if there's something that's not working for you here, start your own thing that does work. Like it doesn't have to be school sanctioned. You don't have to try out and be put on this list on this billboard and meet at this time. You just start your own thing. And I think for me, as soon as I learned that, like, oh wait a minute, high school doesn't mean anything. Like there's a whole world out there where I can do whatever I want. Okay, well, then I'm just gonna have more fun with this and not worry about that stuff. And I think we just need to kind of break that years old conception that like high school, like everything about high school is really important, and this is how it all works, and that's the world, and it's not.
There's another concept I want to explore real quick to answer your question. Sherry can back up on this, but there's a psychological principle in parenting where your child will imprint on him or herself your feedback. Like if you are interested in finding out who your child is, it's not that they mirror that and become interested in who you are. If you care who they are, they will care who they are. If you care to explore what their real interests are, they will care to explore what their real interests are. It's kind of like they're internalizing your attitude towards them. So one of the best things you can do, particularly at very early ages, is not feed them this poison of I hate these things or whatever. Try to find out what their interests are. Let them encourage them to explore anything they're curious about, and then to find out what they're interested in. Because then they'll just be more confident about it. When they deal with all these different groups, they're not going to feel defensive about it, because they will internalize this sense that these are their interests, this is who they are, and all that.
And then 17 years later, they won't come up to you like in varsity blues and be like, I don't want your life.
This may seem ridiculous, but I'm wondering if
you've listened to the rest of this panel.
I'm wondering if, like, there's an effect for today's kids from being in a post-Harry Potter generation, where like this huge geek, thing that everybody's into, the main hero is a total jock.
Yeah. Yes. They play Quidditch.
I was going to say, was this just a question about building a Quidditch league? Because I would love to.
I have adolescent clients, and I've had more than one adolescent client mention playing Quidditch at school. And I'm excuse me? What school? So yeah, it's pretty awesome. They described to me how they, and like this is, and I don't think that in these cases it's been like an official school thing. There's like, this is something that they do just on school's, space. They just hang
think FIFA's already looking to take
There are actually like official governed Quidditch leagues. I'm friends with one of the women who runs the, like, Quidditch Canada is like an organization that, and they go to like international like competitions and stuff.
Quidditch World Cup.
Yeah. Like, no, there are actual governed leagues for
My college had a team that got shut down, and to this day I still blame steroids, although I can't figure out how they're connected. I'm still inclined to blame steroids.
Where did they get the flying brooms?
Yeah.
So it's the question that I was too embarrassed to ask my clients.
Yeah, we've got a few more minutes, if anybody else has any questions.
Going back to the question of children, going back to the question of children, how to invigorate them and thinking about them. It's kind of important at the same time to make sure that you're not stuffing it down their throat. The sports, whether it's sports or nerdery, you know, my wife plays roller derby. I'm a coach up in Seattle, and our son has literally grown up on roller derby. There is no area. When he was 6 months old, when he went to his first tournament, and it just permeates our lives. And kiddos, not in the least bit interested. And that's when we're starting to realize, that's really fun. That really is fun. But it is important to celebrate the things that he is most interested in, whatever those things may be, and to be generative about it, to give him to show enthusiasm for the things that he wants. And that is, and we love the sport that we play. And it's a wonderful thing. But trying to hope that we are, that he will have all the things that we had and more. It's not necessarily what his life is going to be like.
You have to encourage your kids to explore. You've got to be willing to expose them to a lot of different things, not just the things you already do. And that's part of the responsibility of being a parent that a lot of people don't know. So more like, here are the things we do. Let's take the kids along endlessly. I grew up, I was a kid in the 80s, and for the same reason that you're talking about, I was never interested in dinosaurs because everything was dinosaurs. And I think that's a lifelong aversion. And so yeah, you just have to take that responsibility and expose your kids, maybe even to things that you hate, just at least long enough to determine if they're interested. You can say thank God when they're not. Okay.
And like you said, showing interest in what they're interested in, even if it's not your thing, letting them explore that. Because, like when I was growing, I'm the only, in the family of four, I was the only person in the house who owned any books. There were no crafting supplies in my house because I was one crafter, so I learned to make things with paper and Scotch tape. My mother used to say, my daughter can make anything with Scotch tape. And it wasn't until my mid-20s that I realized that's because we had nothing else to make anything. There were no craft stores in Western Oklahoma. So they didn't get it, but they at least let me try. I mean, my mother gave me all the Scotch tape I ever wanted. She didn't buy me any fucking yarn.
Your mother worked for 3M, Scotch tape's free.
Sorry to shatter your bubble.
Well, guys, that's actually our time, but I think I could probably speak for everyone. If there's any other questions you guys have about this topic, we're all very passionate about it. So if you see us walking around, definitely strike up a conversation. That's kind of like the point of what we've been saying. So I thank you all very much for attending. And,